Hello, everybody, and welcome to In This Corner, the podcast on Fight TV. I'm Smitty. Episode 21 begins now, and I'm joined by my esteemed pugilistic panel of my extraordinary co-host, Amber Renee Dixon. How you doing, Amber?
Doing well.
Lee Groves, boxing historian, writer, author. How you doing, Lee?
Doing great.
And Lee, you're going to come in handy a little bit later on when we recap everything that took place over the weekend in the Sweet Science and preview what's upcoming. But let's jump right to our very special guest, because he is a pioneer in boxing. I would certainly say that. He's been around a long, long time, dealing out his expertise as a boxing trainer, as a boxing teacher. He's a former boxing coach. He's had 26 at least professional world champions, 34 Olympians, and if you total everything up, it's about 56 fighters who have become world champions under his tutelage or teaching. They include, and some of these guys we'll be talking about, Edwin Valero, Vince Phillips, Diego Corrales, Freddie Norwood, Charles Murray, Kennedy McKinney, Frankie Lyles, Michael Nunn, Johnny Tapia, Michael Bent. He's also worked with Evander Holyfield, Pernell Whitaker, Roy Jones, Riddick Bowe. It's really who hasn't he? In fact, I'm the only ex-fighter of any significance that has not worked with Kenny Adams. Had I worked with Kenny Adams, I probably could have been a contender. So let's say hello to Kenny.
Champion.
What's that?
No, a world champion.
A world champion. So which, yeah, that would have been nice. How you doing, Kenny?
Fine. How yourself?
Good. Before we get to so much history, because you've been involved in the sport for so many years, tell the folks what you're up to these days. Right now, working, training fighters out of the DLX gym in Las Vegas. Tell the folks what you're doing these days, and then we'll digress.
Well, basically, what I've been doing a lot of is secondary work, helping people. At the same time, a few of the fighters that I brought around is one of the kids that I've helped out, started a few years ago, and now he's back on the scene. And Trevor McCumbee, record about 30-0, 25 knockouts. So I started back helping him, working with him with also another young trainer that's been working with me for a while. And basically that's all I've been doing in this gym. Just like to give a little advice sometime, basically in and out, study working, but do the mitts and stuff every now and then, working with people.
Wait a minute, you're still doing the mitts, right?
Yes, I do.
Now,
yes.
How old are you now, Kenny? You're older than I am.
81.
81 years old and still doing the mitts. When did you first lace up a pair of boxing gloves? When did you first get involved in boxing, and how did you get involved in the Sweet Science?
Well, I think my first scene was my aunt and uncle who raised me, grew up in a club and a restaurant atmosphere. And that type of atmosphere, you're all in the tough area anyway. So I was in a tough area, and it got to the point where it got me to fighting all the time. So I got into fighting all the time and doing that. So that kind of got me interested in boxing. I was 10 years old then, and that got me actually started in boxing. And from then on, it just became a love of life, something I really wanted to do,
Was that in Missouri?
Yeah, I was in Cape Girardeau, Missouri, to be exact. Yeah.
Now, where is that? Lee Groves pretty much knows all about geographic proximity. And where is that at? Is that near St. Louis? Where is that at?
120 miles south of St. Louis.
Okay.
120, St. Louis, Missouri. Yes.
And you all, of course, had an amateur boxing career. Tell me about your amateur boxing career.
Yeah, most of my amateur boxing career, I started actually in Cape Girardeau. I went to Sykeston, Missouri, box. Went through St. Louis for a few times. But then I came to a point where I went in the military. As I got a little older, I went in the military. As a matter of fact, the thing is, there never was a coach in Cape Girardeau, really. So actually, I was really working on my own. And I would go to Jackson, Missouri, which is another 15 miles from Cape Girardeau, and work with a coach out there. And then I would meet him on the highway and go to Sykes and to Charleston, Missouri, or at some time or other on our way to St. Louis to fight in the gloves. So that's how I got involved with that. I'd go on the side of Highway 61 and get in the car and with him and go up and deal with it, you know, and that's how I really started boxing. And so as I started boxing then I went into the military. And when I was 17, after I finished high school, went in the military and started boxing in basic. They had a little boxing happening then. Then when I got transferred, I went out to become airborne. I went to become a paratrooper. I went to Fort Campbell, Kentucky. And when I went there, that's when I got truly interested and introduced into some real boxing. And that was where the 101st Airborne Division, that was strong, terrific fighters in that group. So I got involved with them, and that started learning lessons for me. You know, that was a lot of people around me I was just eating it up, man, you know, and I just seemed to have a natural reaction to it. So small guy then, weighing 120 pounds, you know, 100, fought at 112, 119. So it got to be really enjoyable, man. And one of the major things is that one of the guys that was in the weight class I was in, this guy had won a bronze medal in the 64 Olympics. He got prepared to do that anyway, named Robert Carmody, who ended up getting a bronze medal in the Olympics. And he was, and I had a split fight with him. I beat him once and he beat me. And I became introduced boxer to the game, you know, and it really, really turned me into being a pretty decent little fighter, you know. So that was my start, you know, and I continued to do that in the military and do certain little different things. I ended up going to Europe. I won all USARA championship, went into a lot of African countries and a lot of Scandinavian countries and boxed in those also. And then I came back, fought in the All Army Championship, won that, fought in the All Service, won that, went in the World Military Games, which you fight all over the world. I won that. So, by that time I was getting up into boxing pretty good, and I was very fortunate that I was able to do that and still have a career in the military and get promoted, which was great, because it allowed me to do something I really wanted to do and still get paid to do it,
You mentioned places that you were in your 30-year career in the military, in the Army. One of the places you went, and I don't think you fought in the squared circle there, but you may have had some battles, is you went to Vietnam.
Yes, I did. I had some battles there, quite a few of them. I popped a few people here and there and got blown out of a hole and did a couple of little things like that, and had to protect myself, kill to be killed.
Well, we thank you, for your service. How did you, before I flip it to Amber and then Lee, when did the transition go from Kenny Adams, the amateur fighter, to Kenny Adams, the boxing trainer, teacher, and coach?
Actually, that became in 1972. I ended up having what they call pericarditis, or the removal of the sac from your heart. I had just boxed maybe 2 or 3 weeks before that in the finals of All Army Championship, and I guess during that time I got hit in my heart area. Anyway, my sac was at a point where it busted at the top and the bottom, and I ended up being shipped to Walter Reed and had surgery where they removed the sac from my heart, what they call pericarditis. And that was the end of my career. And well, I didn't think it was the end of it. That's what they told me. They said, no, you can't fight no more. It's over. I said, okay, then. So that's when I said, let me go teach some other people how to fight those. So that's when I got involved in teaching boxing itself.
Amber?
I'm interested in your combat veteran experience in Vietnam. How did what you learned there apply to boxing?
I think what I learned there is about survival of the fittest. When you go out and is killed or be killed, you must prepare yourself in a whole manner, because what I did, I worked with a 5-man team. I was a part of a group, as I was an airborne ranger, and as part of being an airborne ranger, you work with a 5-man team. You have a radio operator, you have a point man, and you have a rear man, and you have a machine gun in the middle. So I would be on a 5-man team, and we would be dropped by helicopter, either jumping and or through land. We would go in by helicopters and get behind the enemy lines, and actually be trying to find out information, seeing how many individuals they had, what kind of unit they had, what involved in it. And we would radio back that with our diddy dot machines, and in a certain way that we do without people knowing and doing that. And at the same time, if we had to be, it would be noticed, we'd have to get out of there quickly, and either the chopper would come in quick and we would have to meet at a location and meet them and be lifted out of there, in most cases. So we call artillery. My job was to see how many troops were, after we fall back behind the enemy lines, seeing how many troops they had, what their particular was, what their major force was. And it was my job to call in and give them the proper coordinates so they could call in. I could call in artillery and our artillery in on them to blow them up, and that was my job, to do that, for whatever. And so we did that, and it would get too hot. The choppers would have to meet at a location, and they had to come in, and we'd have to go out, and move us out. So that was basically what I did in Vietnam during that period. Like I said, with a 5-man team, just go behind the enemy line, so.
But you have talked about how you promote defensive fighting, but then also if it takes certain kind of fighter, or if you're facing a certain opponent where you need to overwhelm them, then you are certainly on the offense. So I guess I'm wondering, did you learn how to strategize from your time as a combat veteran and apply that to breaking down an opponent?
Sort of, I think so. And let me say that another phase of boxing that I went into was something that I prescribed early on in my career, and I learned from the German Olympic team in 1972, what's called strength and conditioning. Whether it be known or other people have picked it up, I was the first to bring strength and conditioning to the United States in 1972, 73. I learned strength and conditioning from the German Olympic team in 1972 in Sonthofen, Germany. I don't know if I'm getting ahead of ourselves or whatever, but I just want to say, mention that I was the first to ever bring it into conditioning within the United States.
When you did bring it, were you met with some resistance? I know City likes to bring up that Ali always said if he could only do 2 things, it would be running and sparring. But then you bring something like that in, and what did people think?
Well, there was puzzling. People were puzzled somewhat, but if you add it in and mix it in at the same time, we were not talking about lifting thousands of pounds. We're talking about small weights with a lot of repetition.
Or,
See, that's
plyometrics.
Plyometric system is what it amounts to. That's what people did not understand, is that they thought you were talking about lifting 100 pounds or 200 pounds. You know, picking up small weights with a lot of repetitions, and it always included in it with your running and conditioning and strength and conditioning, and actually it's the drills that you run, and they work very well, and they're still used a lot now. And as a matter of fact, it's the thing that people really do now. You got people that are experts in doing this. They're strictly real good at it. Strength and conditioning, definitely great. It's a good thing. It's really a good thing.
Yeah, and
what are some of the positive impacts that you've seen from it as a result of fighters taking it up?
I think it was strength and conditioning. I mean, when you think you're tired and you're winded and you're not, because what it did is it pushed you to that next level. And that's what you need in most cases. That last little drive that you need to push you forward is the way it works in the draft. And definitely, no, it's an added addition. And I think it's really was a blessing that it came about, and I mean, other people were using it before. I know Holyfield had a group of people that were using it also, but as far as full fledged, I use it with my boxing team that I had in Germany. That's where I learned it at. And then in '72, when I came back to the States, I started utilizing. I implemented that into strength and conditioning. That became also part of the Olympics / the All Army and the All Service training camps. And people started using it left and right. And of course, people have different versions of it, but it still works very well,
Yeah, I think when Holyfield was doing it, he was doing a few things to try to put on the weight. But what you're saying with the plyometrics, I am a fan of that. I think what the strength and conditioning, fast forward to what they've done the last decade, is I think it's been instrumental in extending the careers of guys.
Definitely.
For example, a Manny Pacquiao, a Nonito Donaire, who you've worked with. I think what it's done is really help these guys extend their careers, especially smaller fighters that would, back in our day, Kenny, they would be done by the time they're 30, and now they're fighting, into their mid and late 30s, and in some cases, Manny Pacquiao is still fighting. So, but I think it's a key to point out what you did say, that it's the resistance and plyometrics than where guys were getting into bulking up too much and perhaps slowing themselves. So yeah, in that aspect, you were a pioneer. I'm going to flip to Lee, but something Amber and Lee, when Kenny was saying that, I don't know if anybody here has seen the movie Bat 21 with Gene Hackman and Danny Glover. It reminds me of what you were describing you were doing as part of your 5-man team. So anybody watching this on Fight, or even Amber, I'll make you watch it when you're hanging around me. But it's a movie called Bat 21 with Gene Hackman and Danny Glover. And now that I've given that movie a shameless plug, I'll toss to Lee.
You made reference to your experience with the 1972 German Olympic team. 12 years later, you were an assistant trainer for the '84 team that won 9 gold medals. And you were the head coach of the '88 squad that officially won 3 golds, 3 silvers, and 2 bronzes, but probably should have won at least 4, if not 5, given what happened to Roy Jones and Michael Carball. When you think back to those days, what were your strongest memories of the whole Olympic experience?
I think the major thing is keep your head in order. Never let nothing hold you back. At the same time, try to keep the attitudes and everybody's principle, everything in order. You can't let nothing shake you up. You get a bad call one day, you can't let that affect you. You got to go forward and just keep pushing. Just keep driving. And motivation is always the key. And I think that's what I saw with a lot of that. You just, as they say, never quit, never quit, never quit.
Absolutely. What were your memories of the 1988 Olympic final with Roy Jones and Park Si-hun? It's still described as the worst decision in Olympic history. And Roy, of course, was crushed by it, and in some ways is still haunted by it.
My picture in the corner was the referee. What he was let happen. I was getting ready to go in there and knock him out, and then Hank said, "No, you kicked out." I don't care. And I said, then he said, "No, man, don't do that, man. Please don't do that." Because I was gonna go in there and choke this. I was gonna do something to him, and I just said, "Okay." I said, "Okay, man, I won't." So my point is, again, it was so much conspiracy going on there, man. We had people following us, and I wasn't even aware of, is that I guess they were undercover agents that worked for the government, because we had gotten some threats after that. And then also during that time frame, the Koreans, I mean, the also what they did is that they had a big party, and they said they wanted to get us all together, have drinks and dance and do stuff like that. And I said, I don't know what we're gonna have a party and stuff for. They didn't screw us, so what the hell? You know what hell they talking about party? So we went up having a party, and everybody toasted everybody and stuff like that. Just play the game, what the heck, So okay, but it's just so many different things that went on in that. It was just highway robbery, and even when we got ready to get on the bus one day, they wouldn't let us get on one of the buses, which caused us to be late. I almost got a fighter. Hembrick was a guy, and almost didn't make the. They said we almost didn't make the fight because I got ready to get on the bus, and the bus is full. Can't nobody else get on, so I didn't get on the bus. They said another bus is coming, and you take people's word for stuff. The bus didn't come there early, so finally we got a ride and got to the arena. So that was another one, and then we got ready to go with Hembrick. Here they go up and they said, no, you can't go in. And I tell you, that was the worst time in my lifetime. I think I told them, kick me, beat me, hit me, do what you want to. I'm responsible. I'm the head coach. I'm responsible for this. So just do what you have to do, man. If you want to beat on me, beat on me. But I didn't mean that, but I said it. But I mean in the sense that I wanted him to get satisfaction, because it was just a shame. Here a guy, you did everything in your lifetime to get on an Olympic team, and you get there and you go get ready to walk up, and they said, no, send him back. It's too late. I said, oh man, this is just terrible.
Yeah, especially, Roy Jones has gone on to superstardom, and Hembrick had a good career, but nothing like Roy. So you're destroying somebody's basically their dream, their life in boxing. Do you think, Kenny, that after those 88 games in Seoul, with the controversy and what happened, it seems as though the Olympic game, boxing in the Olympic Games, the U.S. team, it just seems like after that, it really plummeted and was never the same, that so many people lost so much respect, not for us as our Olympic team, but for the games themselves in boxing, amateur boxing in the Olympics. Really, has it? I don't think it hasn't recovered, has it?
No, it has not recovered. I think that put a bad light on boxing itself at that, because you can just go through so many. Riddick Bowe, bad call. Another bad call. Arthur Johnson, one bad call. You could name them. You could go 2, 3, and 4 bad names and everything. And even you see people often, and I think that's why I know Hank Johnson and I traveled to Korea, going in town sometime, and it was somebody be shuttling us all the time. Every time I look back, I was saying, man, did you see somebody behind us? There was somebody with us. I think we had guards with us when we went to town or did something, because I had really voiced my opinion out loud that I was mad and angry about the whole situation. I had spoke my mind on it. I had said, hey, these sorry ass people, and I talked about the one guy who was a coach, and I know I saw him giving somebody gold and money. I had seen that happen. I'd seen one of those guys giving them gold and money, and they would say, man, you can't be talking like that. I'll say what I want to say, so, but I thought I had some people shadowing me, because they probably thought somebody was going to bump me off or whatever. Who knows? I don't even have any idea, but didn't really care then, but it was really just a bad scene. That was one of the worst in boxing I had seen it, man. It was just tough. And then people, they were against us 100%. Some of the guys would go up and they would have the flag and go around. I know Arthur Johnson and a couple other kids had the flag, and him and Mercer with the flag, and go around the arena with the American flag, and people trying to trip them and everything, man. All kind of stuff like that happened in Korea during that time. It was just a bad time, man.
A lot of corruptions. But when you think of those, between the the 84 and 88 guys like Holyfield and Meldrick Taylor and Sweet Pea and Breland and Tate and Tillman. And then you get into, to Roy Jones and some of the others, so many great fighters, even though the amateur boxing program is not what it was in many ways because of the corruption and the way the Olympics tainted it. But when I think of those fighters, though, that we're naming, those great fighters, obviously, in my opinion, the downfall of amateur boxing in this country has also caused professional boxing in this country, in my opinion, to not be as great. So as went the amateur program, in my opinion, went, so many great fighters, because I just think, long-windedly, I'm saying this, the amateur program's a mess. And maybe it started with the mess in Korea in 88 there. Maybe that's when it all went downhill.
But I think it started even before then. I do, because, I was sent home. I was sent home from the Olympic Training Center because of some bad calls of things that went down.
Yeah, I think you got suspended for 6 months for. I think you went back to your pugilistic days or something there, Kenny, didn't you? Didn't you assault? They claimed you assaulted somebody or something.
I just choked him a little bit and cracked him. But
Okay.
what he did, what was uncalled for. I went in to the trainer. I said, "Look, I need for you guys to give this guy a meal or something, and in the dining facility, because I want to use him for sparring." I was using a civilian guy for some sparring partner with someone, and I said, "I'd like to just get him." And he said, "I'm busy right now, man. I don't have time." I said, "Excuse me, man. I'm trying to do something for our benefit." And when he was talking, he picked up the phone and he raised it up. When he raised the phone up, I thought he was getting ready to hit me with it. So I just threw one of them nice left hooks on him, and then he grabbed me around his neck and wanted to choke him up a little bit. So
So you implemented a little bit of MMA with your boxing. So once again, you were ahead of your time. Bottom line is, with you coached like 11 different medalists, and then I think in 84, and then another 8. So nearly 20 medalists over your coaching career with our Olympic teams. I know we've got some questions about some of the pros that you coached. So Amber, go ahead. I know there's somebody in particular. I'm anxious to hear what Kenny has to say about this certain fighter who's no longer with us, but the time he was here, he was certainly interesting to watch.
Okay.
Well, you talk about going from choking somebody to getting choked. I heard in one of your interviews, you said Edwin Valero at one time tried choking you. Is that true?
Yeah. We got into it. We were in Mexico, and I got after Edwin because Edwin kind of tried to do what he wanted to do. He tried to be his own guy sometimes. I said, "Hey, we got to be prepared and be ready. We ain't gonna have that, And then so me and him reached at each other, kind of, and we kind of said, "All right, man, if you want me to be in your corner, you better get your act together." So he shaped up a little bit, and we got back to taking care of business, So he went on and took care of business in Mexico, So then we sat down and had a long conversation and about things that we should and should not do, because he was a little hard-headed and very stubborn to that point. Boy, could he fight though. But 29-0, 29 knockouts, 19 the first round. Yeah, that boy could fight. But he was just a kind of a guy of his own, and he'd nip that bottle a little bit and do something, everything, it's just something. He was just something else, man, but one heck of a fighter.
Well, I wonder, you have a reputation of being a my way or the highway kind of guy, very strict and disciplinarian. Was that necessary for training a guy like Edwin Valero or even Johnny Tapia, who both dealt with some demons of their own? Do you think that they did deal with some of those mental health issues as well?
Yes, I think I think in philosophizing, I learned You know, I was a guy named Pat Nappy, uh, who was Olympic coach. I think people know about him, knowing him being an Olympic coach from he won his 76 team and the 80, 88, 84 team. Uh, this guy was one heck of a disciplinarian. And that's where I learned a lot of my disciplinarian ways from him. Although at the same time, Sarge Johnson was another guy who was very flamboyant, a guy who would talk that talk and give you different verbs and adverbs and things of that nature. And you learn those things and you complement that along with being tough my way or the highway. And that's something that I learned from them. You have to be strictly that way in a sense too, because in boxing it's very important that a boxer be disciplined, and discipline is very key. And so that's where I learned a lot of that from. And also part of me being a drill sergeant, I knew how to do that, and make how to get down and give me push-ups and do all that good stuff, you know. And we learn how to lean and mean and tough, you know. So those are things that you learn, you know. And growing up, I had an aunt that was like that too with me, who would make me go get my own switch to whip my own butt, you know. So that was about, you know.
Were you ever scared of a fighter like Edwin, who you knew may have a bit of a screw loose?
No, because in those days, I would carry either in my waist or in my boot, I would carry me a little pistol, and I wasn't worried about nobody.
I
You know,
know
how-
it may not be politically correct to say screw loose, but do you believe that about good fighters that, gosh, in order to take that job, to be getting hit all the time, you might have a little bit of a screw loose?
It's I don't know if that can be true, but you know, people say that though. You probably maybe you do have a screw loose. You know, maybe.
Well, I'll pick up on it because I'm very, and I've interviewed more world champions than anybody, and Tapia admitted this to me. Tyson's admitted this to me. Never got a chance to interview Valero, but sometimes the very thing that brings a fighter down outside the ring with that loose screw or something, when channeled inside the squared circle, can be the very thing that makes that guy a good fighter, a great fighter, or a legendary fighter if they can channel that craziness inside, you know, the squared circle. And guys like you at your level, especially with the disciplinarian, and maybe that's one of the things you did best, take these guys who have something loose, tighten it, at least while they're inside the squared circle.
Well, you got a point there. I believe I didn't want to say it Smith that way, but I guess you're correct. There.
I'm the bad guy, Kenny. I'm always the bad guy. So go ahead.
I have post-traumatic stress disorder. I got that from Vietnam. So maybe this all fits up right into a mold with me too. And that's what I've always said with fighters. It's either my way or the highway. And I mean that in the sense, you're gonna do what I tell you, or you do what I ask you to do, or else, you know, just like that. But you know, in the long range of it all, hey, it all pays off. And I think it's important, you know, a guy can have his own way and don't want to learn to listen.
You know, I typically ask people, do they have any regrets? And it's usually on the bigger picture, but on what you just said, maybe you would have been in the corner a lot with Floyd Mayweather if he could handle your disciplinarian tactics, but apparently he couldn't, because the story is, and I think you might have even told me that you had the opportunity, or he had the opportunity to work with you, and when he found out the way you coach, the way you teach, or the way what you expect, it didn't fit into his frame of thinking. Is that an accurate depiction of what happened with you and Floyd?
Yeah, I believe that's what happened. What happened with Floyd is that Donna House had mentioned to me that Floyd wanted me to train him. And so I said, okay, no problem. I would like to do that. And so I was supposed to meet in Taco, which I was there, but I was there with one of my other fighters from Uzbekistan training him. And I said, House, I said, tell him that I'll be with him. I'll be on the other side as soon as I finish training of the fight. And so what happened was that Floyd was on the other side. So when I finished training this young man where I was at, I said, tell Floyd to come over here. And so what happened was that Floyd said, no, he wanted me to come over. I said, no, you come over here. And so he said, oh. I said, it's my way or the highway. And so what happened then was he hit the highway. Bye. So,
Yeah. You know, on Floyd, because it's such a hot topic. And I was probably the first one that made him pound for pound #1 way back in 2004 or 5. Spent a lot of time with him, done an in-ring segment with him, think a lot of him, but he's not in my top 10, even close to my top 10 pound for pound fighters of all time. Is he in your top 10 pound for pound fighters of all time?
You know, Smitty, I've never went. I've only really went one way, and I thought who was the top guy in my pound for pound. And you know who that is?
Who's that?
Sugar Ray Robinson. That's it. I
Yeah.
never other.
Yeah, it begins and ends with him with me as well. I think he's I think he's, but I know you don't get into that, but I got you on, and I'm gonna get the answer out of you. Do you think Floyd is a top 10 pound for pound fighter? I don't.
Okay. You know, I guess I've never really thought about it because it doesn't really hit me to do that. So I just haven't paid much attention to that type, just dealing with that. So who the top 10? I may have thought he might be in the top 10. I don't know. But I never thought that in particular. It never really crossed my mind to me to sit down and just visualize. I just knew, I was concerned that it was Sugar Ray Robinson, and there wasn't nobody. The only guy that I thought that was close to him, and this guy won around without throwing a punch, and
Willie
that was
Pep.
Yeah, Willie Pep. You know what I mean?
My #1.
Yeah. How do you think Floyd would have done, since you do know about both? How do you think Floyd would have done with Sugar Ray Robinson?
When he woke up.
Yeah, we both agree on that. Lee, go ahead. Couple more minutes with Kenny here.
Several years ago, ringtv.com asked you to rank the best you've ever trained in several categories, such as best skills, best jab, best chin, best puncher, smartest, strongest, and so on. Who was the best fighter all around that you've ever trained, and why? And I think a clue might be behind me.
Okay, I can't see that well, but Valero.
What was that?
Was that Edwin Valero back there?
No, that's actually Kennedy McKinney when he won the championship.
It was between him. It was the top between him and Edwin. Had to be the best two. Yes, without a doubt.
What were your memories of Kennedy? What made him the fighter that he was?
I think behind McKinney was his great ability, agility, and his ability, along with demons also. You know, behind every great fighter and things of that nature, there's a lot of demons there. And you had to be effective in those, and you bring them out of you, push you to another level, being hungry. I think that brings about a lot of it, and wanting to be the best you can be. I think that plays a big role in it.
If a guy or gal walks in your gym and wants to be a prize fighter, and let's say they're a teenager or something like that, with your expertise, with your eye and the things you can see and the things that you can't see, the unseen qualities of a fighter, how long will it take you to break down whether this person has what it takes to be a great prize fighter, and what are the key ingredients that it takes to be a great prize fighter?
Well, for worth ethics mean a lot, but once again, ability plays a big role into it. Another point is if a guy is able to really listen, you're able to teach him, he's able to pick up. That's very important. Worth ethics mean a whole lot. And I think the best drill is like that is push him to the next level and see how far up, how well he can take it. If there's any quit in him, no pain, no gain, drive on. But N and G makes a big difference, so I think that's role in it.
It also sounds to me like, too, even though boxing is not really considered a team sport at its essence, and when it comes down to it, great fighters seem to have a great respect for their lead trainer, whether it be Mike Tyson and Cus D'Amato, Ali and Angelo Dundee, Emmanuel Stewart with Tommy Hearns and the Kronk. It seems to me that it's so important for the trainer and the fighter to have this bond where that fighter has tremendous respect, trust, and belief in the trainer, and you have to and have that same for your fighters.
That's true. Exactly right. You're right there. You must instill the faith both ways. Definitely, 1,000%.
You've worked with more than 24 professional world champions, from Rene Jacot in 1992 to DJ Krill in 2019. Many people talk about the transition from amateur to pro for fighters. But what was the transition like for a highly successful trainer like you? Was there a transition from the training amateur fighters to training professional fighters?
Yes, there were things that I had to learn. For one, you learn about the rounds and all the different things that you learn in phases like that. But it seemed like I picked up pretty easy. I think God put me on this earth to do this. So possibly it just fell into my laps. I was just blessed, and I just fell in just right for me. It just everything seemed to play a role, because you're moving from 3 rounds to 10 to 12 to 15. But you have to learn and be a challenge to you also. And that's one of the things that I did. I made it a challenge for me, and I always wanted to be the best I could be. And so that's why I pushed myself to another level too. And I looked at a lot of tapes, and I did a lot of drills and things that I did. And another thing, hands-on is another thing. A lot of drills and things that I did, I put my own self through the same position and time and frame. And in doing that, I knew what level I could go and how much I could push myself along the same line, push another guy to that point. So I think that's one of the main things you want to do. You want to put yourself to the same level that you expect out of your fighter. And I want the max out of him like I expect the max out of myself.
I think one of the biggest problems with boxing today, I mentioned the fact that the amateur program in this country is so poor. But I also think the lack of Kenny Adams, people like yourself, that anybody can put a damn whistle around their neck or a toothpick in their mouth or a towel around their damn shoulder. But real teachers, real boxing teachers are almost extinct. Do you agree with me that that's one of the biggest problems our sport faces right now, at least in this country, is really there's some good trainers.
Yes.
Don't think we have that many.
Well, the big thing that I find is technique and teaching. And that's very, very important. The way of moving a guy in position, follow through with his punches, turning, pivoting on the balls of the feet, getting the explosiveness out, block, parry, catching, doing these things. These are the things that have went by the wayside. And These are things that must be learned, and it takes a little time, but I think that's the key of it all right there. Basic fundamentals are so very, very important. You must be able to do that and do them properly. And if you can do that, you can do it. But once again, you have your styles, and style make fights. Yes, they do. So therefore, you must take a guy's style and use it to the best of his ability, and that's what you have to also do. You may find a guy that has some awkwardness about it, but that awkwardness may be the key function that makes him the best or be as good as he wants to be. So maybe that's the same way you work it. But no, it's very important, and you got to learn your craft, and you must learn how to teach it from foot to head. You must go all the way, 1,000%.
Yeah, I'm so lucky that growing up in Miami, and I was able to be a part of the Fifth Street Gym, and had my own little trainer, Matt Goodman, who I was able to get in the Florida Boxing Hall of Fame, was around, and Angelo Dundee became a good friend. George Benton became a good friend. Emmanuel Stewart became a good friend. I consider a good friend. You were inducted into the Nevada Boxing Hall of Fame the same year I was in 2016. You're also in the Missouri Sports Hall of Fame. And Lee Groves, I think someday, hopefully sooner than later, I believe that Kenny Adams should be there with us, because I believe he certainly is deserving to be in the International Boxing Hall of Fame.
Well, you went over his record at the top of the show. We've talked about the depth and breadth of all the fighters that he worked with. The numbers are immense, and I think anybody who sees his name on the ballot, you've got to put a check mark on it, because his record speaks for itself. I'm on record for saying yes, and I hope that others will feel the same way. He deserves it.
Thank you.
How does Kenny Adams want to be remembered as a boxing trainer and as a man?
No pain, no gain. I also like to say that my way or the highway. Let's deal with it.
Okay. And one final thing, did you know that Amber had an amateur fight? Amber Dixon there, she had an amateur fight at the D. What year was that, Amber?
2017.
Who trained you for that?
Oh, the great James Smitty Smith.
And I screwed up because we did not know, Kenny, we did not know that we were going to face a young lady that had way more experience, but was like 6 inches, 7 inches taller. And because you and I are both kind of the vertically challenged a little bit, Kenny, although I actually think that we're the right height that men should be. But can you work with Amber? She wants a rematch, and she needs to know how to deal with a taller fighter. And I just simply wasn't good at that. So can you help her fight a taller person?
Oh, definitely.
And if you were my trainer, you would if you were my trainer, you would have properly investigated my opponent prior and would have already known how tall she was.
Yes, I'll look at some tape and film and check her out. Yeah.
It was like Seoul, Korea. It was a disgrace what they did to us. A disgrace.
Yes.
Listen, Kenny, it's great. It's great to see you. Great to have you on there at the DLX gym, and hopefully you'll continue to train fighters for a long, long time and share your gifts. And hopefully I'll spend some time with you, not only here in Vegas, but also in a place called Canastota, New York, someday sooner than later.
Yes, well, I've been put in for there for a couple of days or so. So like quite a few years. So I don't know what has happened, but it's not a problem. I'm in my home state of Missouri. I'm pleased on that. And in my second home, Nevada, pleased about that. And my other home, Florida, being a Florida AAU champion, I enjoyed that. So, God's blessed me, and a lot of fighters have helped me along the way, and a lot of good people have, to include the lady that runs the gym here, Miss Trudy Nevin. So it's all been good. So all is good. And along the way, I've met a lot of good people that made me a good person. And like they say, you be all you can be. and I was in the Army.